Hey guys, it's Riot Kitty. It's been a while, hasn't it, since I've covered this manga? So long, in fact, that the RWBY Bunta manga has wrapped up and now there's a physical version of Volume 1, which I have bought. And also Volume 2 is on the way. Which is good, because I really thought Rooster Teeth would cancel this because of the rabid shippers. And you're about to see why in these next couple of chapters and videos. Let's just say it's quite funny, the controversy that was surrounding this manga. With all that being said, let's get it started. Chapter 10 starts off with our main heroes, plus Sun and Neptune, going off and doing their separate tasks to try and bring down the White Fang and Roman. And might I just say, Weiss looks absolutely lovely in her Volume 2 outfit. Not much has changed from the show here. Yang still goes to see Junior, but with an added cameo from the Malachite twins that the comment section really seems to fancy. And Weiss and RWBY go to the Atlas communication tower, so that Weiss can ask her family about all the attacks by the White Fang. As Weiss puts it, RWBY will only get in the way because she's an outsider, and refuses to introduce her to the Shnees, and tells the girl to just ask around and they'll meet up later. After that lovely banter, RWBY does just that, and then sees all of the soldiers and ships flying around and comments on them. However, then someone cries out to watch out. And then RWBY sees a small child getting in the way of a moving vehicle going to retrieve his ball. RWBY uses her speed to try and get to the child before the truck hits, but then Penny shows up and blocks the truck with her hands. Still the most badass thing that Penny has ever done. RWBY is understandably stunned by this, but the moment is cut short by the Atlan soldiers nearby, who spot them and go to retrieve Penny. Without thinking, RWBY grabs Penny and the two flee the scene. In the show, these events actually happen in reverse, with RWBY almost getting hit by the truck because she tried to take Penny away from the guards. While a small change, it actually makes both girls look less naive. RWBY for not being hit by the truck because she overused her aura, and Penny for not letting herself be spotted as easily by taking a walk around town with RWBY. The manga then transitions to Sun and Blake, who are going to infiltrate the White Fang meeting. And well, Sun, it really is best to just not think about how the White Fang sees in their masks. A lot of Faunus are gathered at the assembly, and Roman Torchwick makes his presence known. And all the Faunus try to boo him off the stage because he's a filthy human. But Roman is totally not fazed by this as it transitions back to RWBY and Penny. RWBY asks Penny if she's okay, but Penny seems to shrug it off and tries to play it off like everything that just happened was no big deal. RWBY knows that something bigger is going on with her friend, and she says that she won't pry into her business if she doesn't want to talk about it. And Penny reveals to RWBY that she is a robot, in much the same fashion as the show. Although Penny is sort of bewildered that RWBY does still want to be her friend. And RWBY tells her, well, you taught me that, well, no matter what kind of person you are, the fact of our friendship remains unchanged. And Penny goes in for a cute, adorable hug. While this scene totally leads to the same conclusion as the show, I would like to point out here that Penny actually speaks a lot differently than she does in the actual show. She actually speaks like a prim and proper lady, almost like she was programmed that way by an old man who talks like that. By and by, I really like that Penny reflects her creator a little bit more here with her speech patterns. She bids her goodbyes, but not before warning RWBY of danger, as it transitions back to Roman as he presents the big, giant Atlas mech. He gives a pretty decent villain speech, wanting to turn the world upside down, and saying he's got the power. Now, White Fang, do you want the power? And they cheer uproariously in response. Blake isn't too pleased by this, seeing that, well, taking down Roman ain't gonna solve much. And that's when Roman possibly does the coolest thing in this manga. He tips his hat and is like, hey, I seem to have forgotten something here. We have intruders. And just points to Blake and Sun. And he's like, it's showtime, you two is quite possibly the best panel in this manga. For me personally, it graces my eyes because, oh my god, this looks so cool. Also, no one can convince me otherwise that this is not foreshadowing Adam, because look at the shadows and the slashes over the mask, which he's the only White Fang member with that going on. It's just, this is so good, I could save this as my wallpaper. And that's the end of chapter 10. As chapter 11 starts off with this really nice double-page spread of Blake and Sun running away from the Paladin. This chapter is mostly high-octane action, so there's not really much to comment on here. There is a nice sweet moment between Blake and Sun here and there, with Sun saying, well, I'll let you escape, go get help, and I'll deal with this. And Roman is delightful here, being just the right amount of delightfully over-the-top cartoon villain. Sun helps Blake get away, and she calls up Yang for help. And while that's happening, Sun is running and jumping around away from the giant robot. And he actually does a pretty good job until he gets a full body slam, which has gotta hurt, especially with a depleted aura. Luckily enough, Neptune sweeps in and saves Sun from being totally annihilated. And Roman and Neptune kind of have a little stare down at first. But Neptune notices something out of the corner of his eyes just as Roman pile drives Sun into the sky. But he doesn't realize he's actually taken out a clone. And Sun has at least surmised a plan about how to slow down the mech, slicing open the water tower nearby. And I must admit the level of teamwork here is impressive, as Neptune knew exactly what Sun was going to do just from his body language and movements. And he knew what he had to do without even taking orders. Unfortunately, the Paladin appears unfazed by this, going to tower over Neptune, but Sun tries to give it a backhand. The boy's tricks have worn thin, as Roman remarks that he thinks he's found Sun's real body this time, as Neptune is trying to hurry him away. When it seems like they're down for the count, Roman sees that someone is approaching, however the sensors aren't detecting it, and he realizes that that was their plan all along. And just in the nick of time it seems, Team RWBY enters the frame in a really awesome panel. Seriously, this looks really cool, honestly. And thus ends Chapter 11. And with that, Chapter 11 ends and Chapter 12 begins, as the Team RWBY girls pull off various wombo combos to cripple the Paladin even further. Roman is obviously getting more and more ticked off that his super fighting robot is crippled, as the girls slice and dice their way through the Paladin, with the combo attacks they did in Volume 2. Unfortunately, Roman does not give up as easily as they might have hoped, because he pulls a almost borderline Yu-Gi-Oh! Crazy face, and he's like, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna punch you all to death with my super fighting robot. As now it is Blake's turn to get punched by the Paladin, right straight in the gut. Oof. And she and Roman have a very interesting exchange where he's like, well, did you actually believe you could stop us? You, a girl who's betrayed her own allies for her own guilt. You, a girl who just cast aside one mask for another. And he's like, behold, here's what all of your actions have costed you. Your friends and your comrades are hurt, and now you're under my giant mech fist. So she definitely won't be a real hero because she keeps messing up. And Blake even agrees with him to a certain extent, as Yang tries to do a sneak attack on the Paladin with her semblance. Also, wow, Yang's semblance looks really cool in this shot. And Blake goes into this really good spiel about she's got people pushing her forward, she's got people who wanted to walk by her, and so with them, she can become the real deal, a real hero, as Yang punches through the Paladin and disintegrates it. This is probably the most character development she's received in a while, and it's from a rehash of Volume 2. Which is kind of sad in and of itself. Anyways, Roman Cool Guy teleports out of it relatively unscathed, and he's looking to settle things with Team RWBY on a 4v1 fight. However, Neo makes her first manga appearance, stopping Roman from doing anything more. And Roman is like, well, Cinder's hopping mad, isn't she? Okay, I guess I'll stop here for tonight. That theory video I made a while ago is still holding water here, because Roman only stops because of Neo appearing. I mean, I think she makes him happy. And on that note, Roman giving his Cinderella metaphors is certainly amusing, as RWBY, not Yang, actually goes in for the kill, but unfortunately Neo had already set up her glass illusion. And she actually gets super annoyed by this to the point of screaming, so that's actually kind of interesting that instead of Yang, it's RWBY. I mean, she does actually have a more personal relationship with Tortrix, so it's slightly more understandable, I think. And with that, this chapter comes to a close with the first visible introduction of Emerald and Mercury, as they, along with Cinder, sneak into Beacon Academy. The dialogue here between Emerald and Mercury is actually kind of cute in a weird way, and honestly, it gives me that sibling impression that I've almost always gotten from them, even though they're not biologically related. And now it is time for chapter 13, and here's where the salt really flows for the RWBY Shonen Jump Manga. Anyways, the chapter starts off with the group going over their plans, and well, they got information. Southeast Vale, which is Mountain Glen. Their next target to find and stop Roman torturing. However, first it's time for the dance before Mountain Glen. And here's where the incomprehensible sin was committed. Cutting out burning the candle in favor of Sun asking Blake to the dance. As Sun figures out that he did make an impression on Blake as she walks up to him to say thanks for everything. Saying that she really owes him one. As Sun starts to laugh, saying that that's so her. And so in that case, he asks her to the dance, so that they'd be even. The manga cuts away from the two smiling at each other to John and Pyrrha doing some training. Pyrrha notices that John seems a little bit distracted, and he admits that it's about the upcoming dance. She asks him if he'll invite Weiss, but John says, well, someone already got the jump on him on that one. But Pyrrha suggests, well, there's someone out there that's probably noticed his charms, and that he'll probably get a partner. And she even mentions that no one's paired up with her yet. And John is definitely surprised by this, saying that if she ends up alone, he'll wear a dress. He thanks Pyrrha for listening to him complain, and the two continue their training after some protest from John. And Pyrrha gives this really distant look in her face as it cuts to the dance that night. And here's where also the buckets of salt are being poured by the rabid shippers, as RWBY lists off who everyone's with, and notices that Pyrrha's gone. And, well, would you look at that? Blake is with Sun. Yang is by herself, not dancing with Blake, and the burning the candle scene has been cut out for all the Yellowjack shippers. Here's a quick montage. And many more. All because of cutting one scene out. Honestly, the only thing that was cut out that I think was kind of important was the bully arc with John and Pyrrha to further build their relationship, but Blake and Yang have literally nothing. That scene honestly never becomes important. Even when Yang meets Raven, that's never discussed at all. And it's not like, you know, Bunta Kinemine is adapting the source material. No. Sun asking Blake to the dance and them going together. That never happened. Ever. I just find it funny that, well, I get told a lot to respect the Bumblebee canon, Blake and Yang for life. And yet, well, they can't respect an alternate take at all. Well, that's enough laughing at the rabbit shippers. Now back to the regularly scheduled program. RWBY tells John to get the heck up there to see Pyrrha, and he goes. And you get this absolutely beautiful shot of Pyrrha gazing out. He presumes that her date showed up late and thinks that, well, that's really rude. However, Pyrrha corrects him, saying that there's nobody coming, and John seems surprised at this. But she tells him she's always been an elite ever since she was little. She excelled at everything she did, and people loved her for it. Unfortunately, a distance grew between her and the people she was trying to please. And there was no one by her side anymore by the time she realized it. And Pyrrha indirectly says that she would have liked to attend the dance with John. And she walks off, and John realizes he was being an idiot, not realizing that Pyrrha wanted him to ask her out. And this is why I said the bully arc could have helped, because the flashback at the bottom of chapters are from the first couple of chapters in the manga, so this would have helped in, you know, getting their relationship developed. Anyways, Pyrrha walks down to the ballroom and bumps into RWBY, and she asks her where John is, obviously being awkward about it. And Pyrrha turns around to find John wearing a dress, still rocking it in 2020 and 2021. Pyrrha is understandably confused by this, but he says that, well, we Arkmen are true to their word. And she realizes he's making good on his promise on if she ends up alone, he'll wear a dress. So he gets down on one knee and asks her for a dance, and she happily accepts in a very sweet moment. Reminds me of how much I miss Pyrrha in the show, but it's probably for the best anyways. And then the manga cuts away to Cinder, who is planning something evil. Planning the operation to infiltrate the clock tower with Emerald and Mercury, who are still as swag as I remember them in their formal wear. So she's going to be pulling off some ninja skills while everyone's having fun. RWBY walks outside and gets a weird feeling, and I gotta stop the manga right here as Cinder slices and dices her way through some Atlas guards. Because there's a panel missing here, and that's of RWBY actually seeing Cinder going to the clock tower. Or at least just sneaking around. So because of that, RWBY just randomly shows up at the clock tower for some reason. So Cinder already knows who RWBY is, remarking that she's the little girl who caught Roman's interest. And RWBY asks if she's with Roman, and Cinder's like, so what if I am? And RWBY seemingly goes back to get her crescent rose and straps it up for a big fight against Cinder. And that's where the chapter ends, in this pretty cool action shot. So do you guys agree with my takes on the manga, or not? And what are your thoughts on the manga overall in general so far? Let me know in the comment section below. Make sure to like, sub, and share if you fancy. And with that, Riot Kitty is signing out.